War is scary. We all know that by now, hopefully. The risk of death, not being able to see your friends and family, the huge pressure that is put on you to win, not to mention the fact that you have to live knowing that you killed someone. There are tons of horror stories from wars, but one in particular stands out to me: the attack of the dead men. On the 6th of August 1915, the Germans launched an attack on the Russian Austerlitz fortress. This was the third attack they'd done after the first, September 1914, and the second, February to March 1915, had failed. The Germans attacked with 14 infantry battalions, 1 sapper battalion, and most importantly to the story, the artillery, armed with poison gas. This added up to around 7,000 to 8,000 men in total. The Germans were led by Paul von Hindenburg, who later became the President of Germany. The Russian side had only 1,800 men, which makes a ratio of 4-to-1. The commanding officer there was Lieutenant Vladimir Karpovich Kotlinski, who I am unable to find much information on besides date of birth, date of death, and a few pictures. It was dawn at around 4 AM that the Germans released chlorine from 30 gas balloon batteries. The area affected by the gas was huge, and there were no effective means of protection for the Russian soldiers. The 9th, 10th, and 11th companies of the Zemlansky Regiment were out of action. The Germans fired their artillery. The fortress's artillery wasn't able to return fire effectively, since it was also hit by a wave of gas. The fortress was constantly shelled with both conventional and chlorine gas shells. More than 1,600 people were killed in the fortress, and every single Russian soldier was affected by the gas. 7,000 of the German troops, thinking that everyone was either dead or unable to fight back, advanced on the fortress, expecting little to no resistance. But around 60 to 100 Russians survived. The odds were still not in their favour, being 70 Germans per 1 Russian in the best case scenario for the Russians, and they were still affected by the gas. But the Russians were resilient. They formed a countercharge against the Germans. The German soldiers were terrified of the Russian soldiers, who were coughing up blood and even bits of their own lungs. They looked dead, like zombies. The dead were fighting back. The Germans retreated, even running fast enough to be caught in their own sea wire traps. The Russians only had 5 guns left, so they used them to fire onto the retreating Germans. Lieutenant Kotlinski died later that evening, most likely from the gas, but not before handing command to BM Sturzeminski, who was also affected by the gas, but was able to carry the battle to the end, and even took the 1st and 2nd section of the Sosnia position, still damaged by the gas. They didn't hold the area for long, with the German threat to encircle the fortress. The Russians took 12 days to withdraw though, so they were able to defend it for quite a while. This is one of the most interesting, as well as one of the most terrifying war stories in my opinion. You never really see people talking about the Eastern Front in World War I, because it was quite different from the trench warfare in the Western Front, and I wish we learned more about these smaller battles in history lessons, because they're often more interesting than the bigger and more famous battles. Well, if there's one thing we can take away from this, it's that you shouldn't mess with Russians, especially with gas.